Okay, Montessori inspired DIYs. There is a plethora of them scattered across the internet. You can find tons and tons and tons of things to do on your own. And these are just some of the things that I've done here with my two kiddos and found them quite easy. And usually it's with things that I have lying around the house or things that you don't need many supplies to go and gather. I'm not going to categorize them into any sort of age group because, as you know, kids are so different. They do things at different times. They will amaze you at their capabilities if you just give them a chance. But I will say you don't want to give them something that's way beyond their capabilities to the point where they're getting frustrated and they just don't want to play with it anymore. It's nice to be a little bit challenged, but too challenging, they just won't be interested in it. And if that happens, just put it away, bring it out, whatever, a week, a month later, whenever you think they're ready for it. The first thing that I made were these high contrast cards. Very simple process. I just printed these images from Google and then I had access to a laminator at the time. So I turned them into double-sided cards. They started out taped to the wall next to Colton's change table and crib and have followed him now down onto our bookshelf. He loves to play with them and because they're laminated, they stand up to his abuse. Very basic teething ring. With some ribbons laced around it. You can buy these online. You can find these rings in the macrame section at your local craft store. And this, I have to say, still, my son is 8 months old and he loves chewing on this. The ribbons will all be soaked. I didn't really think it was going to be a favorite. But I wanted the rings for another thing that I had made for him here. And I had a roll of multicolored ribbons, so I thought, what the heck, I'll throw it together. And this is one of his most favorite teething rings and favorite things to play with. I don't know if it's because it's so soft or because there's so many strands to grab it by, but one of his faves, super easy to make. Another thing with ribbons that we made is just a simple old Tupperware lid. And there is different kinds of ribbons that we have strung through here, and you just tie knots on either ends of them and they just pull it through, and each ribbon makes a different noise. Some are hard, some are easy. It's a really great toy, and this is kind of like a multi-sensory. You know, the different sounds that it makes is great. The ribbons are different textures, but he also loves, actually both of my kids, because my almost 3-year-old has found a new love for all of these toys that I have brought out for our son. He loves it when you just dangle it across his face and give his face a little tickle with it, and my daughter loves it too. So again, random ribbons, shoestrings, whatever you got, and an old Tupperware lid. The cat also loves this too. So my son gets on his belly and shakes it around and the cat goes crazy for it. Kids love it. Next up, don't look past, you know, a good old basket of balls. We have one with little nubs on it that is partially deflated so that he can get a hold on it. This one is a knit. It's actually an F-bomb that, you know, Auntie Kedra made for us, but it's really squishy, it's soft. And then this one is just a, you know, plain old ball with a strawberry kicking on it. We've had it for a long time. So it has lost some of its air too, so it's easy for him to grab all of these balls. This is from our ball pit. He can grab all of these balls with one hand and they scatter everywhere and it entices him to chase them. Now these are all great. These can all be played with while your baby is on their belly, on their back. They don't have to be in a seated position to be able to play with these things. The ribbons, it will take a while before they can actually pull the ribbons through, but even before that, just watching them shake around, and you know, it's one of those things, even if they hit themselves with the container lid, it doesn't really hurt, because once they start to get around 6 months old, 7 months old, you know, they start to do this with everything that they get a hold of, and everything becomes a weapon, right? So this is one that will really stand with them for quite some time. And once they are able to sit up, you can introduce things like the stacking rings. So this is from the your standard, it's from IKEA, I believe, and it has the wood rings that get smaller, but the hole is maybe a 1/2 inch in diameter. So that's going to be impossible for, you know, a small child to be able to get this stick through this tiny little hole that just fits on those stacking rings. So in the meantime, we have the macrame rings, and I think I paid about $10 for a pack of 20. So these very easily stack on this ring or stack on this pole, and they come off very easily. They're very easy to get back on. And again, my son loves chewing on these wood ones, and he loves chewing on this because this is kind of like rubberized. Once he started sitting, I was able to give him this. Now he does pick this up and shake it around, and like I said, everything kind of becomes a weapon, but he really likes the sound, and he likes chasing after the rings. I see him trying to get the rings back on, and it's something, again, that will last quite some time through his capabilities with his hand-eye coordination of being able to purposefully put this ring back onto this stick. And then once he's mastered that, we'll put the wood discs that came with this back on there. Another one for texture, this is just a bunch of caps from the wipes, the packages of wipes, and what I've done here inside each one is just a different little piece of fabric or paper. It can be, it doesn't have to be for a tactile sensory. It can be for a visual sensory as well. You know, one's really shiny, one's really soft, one's kind of ribbed. The other one is some fine sandpaper, another glittery but kind of rough paper here, and then another one that's just a little bit more of a rough vinyl there. And like, it's just attached to a piece of cardboard that I put some construction paper on, so it just didn't look like a piece of cardboard, because my son will try to eat it too. So I've got red construction paper, and I just happen to have some red glittery duct tape. So we just taped that out. Like, it wasn't planned, it just kind of worked out that way. And like I said, my daughter, who is almost 3 years old now, she is getting a good kick out of this one right now. Just opening and closing, it makes a sound. It does have a nice scent because it was with the wipes, and just all the different textures. She really is enjoying this all over again too. This is just a Christmas gift box from the dollar store and a ball from our ball pit. So we just take the lid off, flip it over. You gotta kind of shimmy some stuff up at the back here. I have a piece of cardboard that's on a slight incline, and some little pieces here in the corner so that the ball doesn't get stuck. But you show them to take the ball, put it in the hole, and it comes out the bottom. So it's object permanence. It's them understanding that just because this ball has disappeared doesn't mean it's gone. It's still there. They see it come out. And I was really, really shocked at how quickly I saw my son, again, with purposeful movements of trying to take the ball and put it into the hole. And when I'm playing with him with this, I do give him some instructions with all of these toys that we're playing with. And in this case, for this one, you just keep it very, very basic. I say to him, ball, hole, and it comes out. And I'll do that 2 or 3 times, and then he takes it and looks at it, and I tell him ball, and he probably tastes it first, and then I tell him hole. And now he's with intention putting the ball in the hole. It's not just happening by fluke. He doesn't get it every time. He misses, or he gets distracted as the cat walks past or something like that. But I was amazed at how quickly he started doing this activity, being able to do this activity with intention. It really, really is amazing. Your kids are so much smarter than you would ever believe. And the next few are all kind of similar with that, not just the object permanence, but just the hand-eye coordination of taking an item and sticking it in a particular place. So once he masters that box, then I will give him this one. And this one is great because, again, there's a lot of sensory. It makes a lot of noise. When it rolls, you can see all of the cubes rolling around in there. and then in the top there's a square that's cut out. And then what we'll teach him is that you take the cube and put it in the square. But they have to be a little more lined up than just a ball in a hole that will fit no matter which way you put it in. And this target is smaller, the objects are smaller, so it just makes it a little bit harder for him. And then after he masters that, we will introduce this guy here. So this is an old coffee tin that I just, again, with that glittery duct tape that I have, just covered up, which you don't have to, your kids don't care what's on it. And then I have some old flashcards in here, which I think I also used for an activity book that we made a matching game, but that comes way later. I don't even think I'm going to show that one right now. And then I've cut 2 slats into this lid. So one is horizontal and one is vertical. And then you can use any kind of cards or anything you want. They can be pegs. You know, there's so many different things you can use. I chose the flashcards because this was something that was part of our daily routine. So he can take the card and stick it in this way, or he can take the card and stick it in sideways. So even though he has 2 options, the target is way smaller and he has to be way more precise with this one. And we'll play with the flashcards too. And this just kind of turns into, I show him the flashcards first and I put them in here. And then once he shows an interest for trying to get the cards in here, then I'll let him have the cards. He hasn't really showed an interest in that yet, but I've just started showing him the flashcards. So the next step up from that is this guy right here, which is an old protein powder container and some big fat popsicle sticks, craft sticks. And I have done multiple holes in this one in multiple directions. And same thing, they take the popsicle stick and, you know, they can try to figure out which hole they can fit it into. But this was the one that was a very big eye-opener for me with my daughter. She was about a year old when I gave her this. I gave her the container as I had set it up. I dumped out the sticks and gave her the container and was showing her how to put the popsicle sticks into the holes. So she was trying that and it just, you know, it wasn't working for her, and she'd try at it and then stop, and then she'd try again and she'd stop. And then the next day when I gave it to her, the lid was off because we were playing with the popsicle sticks, and she picked up the lid and she picked up the popsicle stick and then she got it. And it just blew my mind. The critical thinking that took from her to make this task easier. Now she controls 2 parts instead of just 1 part, and she did it, and I was really, really amazed. Now, one thing I will say, if you are making any sort of activity for your child and you are going to cut holes in lids or slats or punch holes, whichever you're going to do, boil it. You have to boil it first, especially with this one. This one is really, really thick. It's a good quality, much thicker than this flimsy peanut butter lid, but even the flimsy peanut butter lid, I just get a small pot of boiling water. I set it in just for about a minute. It's not going to melt. It's just going to soften it up a little bit, and then keep that pot boiling. Some tongs, take it out. This cools very, very quickly, so you only get a couple little cuts. Then when it starts to get too difficult with a brand new knife that you're going to use, a quality X-Acto knife, then put it back in the pot for a minute, let it soften up again, take it out, make a couple more cuts. Otherwise, you're gonna try to cut it and put too much pressure and it's just gonna crack, and you know, you'll have to find another lid or another container to do that activity. So boil your lids. Working on the pincer grip, this was part of a bigger activity board that I had made for my daughter. But it was just some colors. That is just half of a paper plate, and then the clothes pegs I painted in the same color. And she takes the clothes pegs off of here and then clips it onto the matching color over here. She does a bunch of other things with it too, and like I said, this was all just part of another activity, a bigger activity board that we had made. But this one really stuck with us. This lasted a long time because it took her quite some time to master the strength in this. And I did take some bit of glue. If you're going to use these wood clothes pegs, then I suggest taking a little bit of glue and just putting it over top of the little spring that it's in, because they fall apart so easily, especially with little fingers that are like snapping them all over the place. Put a little bit of glue over top of it and they stay in quite well. The latest thing that we've made is this mystery box. So this goes really, really well with Nola right now. So what I'll do, for example, it's really limitless to, you know, your imagination is the limit with this one. But what I will do is, she has some small kitchen utensils that are plastic, and I have all of these same utensils that are in my kitchen. So I put all of these utensils in this box, and then we look at the bigger kitchen ones that I have, and the object of this is to reach in and for her to use just her sense of touch. It's a really tactile activity because she has to feel them with her hands and not look at them. Now, at first, she does cheat a lot. She tries to look in. She can look in. I mean, you can move these out of the way and see in, but the idea of it is to get her to use her sense of touch. And by having the same items that she can look at, I can tell her the potato masher has a squiggly top. Feel around for something that has a squiggly top in there. Or, you know, with the whisk, you have to get items that are very different from each other to begin with, and then you can progressively make it harder and harder, and you can eventually get to things that are, you know, all the same size, the same shape, but maybe just a different texture on it. Another thing that we use in this one is, I'll use some animals, because we have 2 giraffes and one just happens to be small. We have 2 panda bears and one happens to be small. And, you know, we have 2 frogs and 2 little rubber duckies. So one of each of these animals goes into the box, and then the other animal is left out so that she can see it. So it's kind of a reminder. Now, these animals are all very different, obviously, in shape and in size. So it's a little bit easier for her to recognize. You want them to be able to succeed so that they want to keep playing and want to keep challenging themselves. And then you just progressively make it a little bit harder and a little bit harder. And then, you know, she picks things that she gets to put in there. Sometimes she does it back to me where I have to pick out what she has put in there. And it's a really fun game. This is a new one that we've just kind of introduced. So we're still kind of getting the hang of it, and we're still experimenting with it. But it's really, really fun. And like, it's made from a Kleenex box. And I just took some 2 pieces of felt and just overlapped them on the top. And, you know, it stretches a lot, but this is very easy to just glue back down and make it tighter again. And it's a great little game. And even if this box gets ruined, we easily will have another Kleenex box empty in a week or so. So I think I'm going to leave it there. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to continue to see some more of me and mine, then please consider subscribing. Thanks.